Hello, I'm Cat, and welcome back to our second channel video. So recently I was talking about Israel and the Palestine territories, and one of the little side notes that I had to dive into, just for a fun tangent, because Jerusalem is a very big city that happens to go right on the border between where Israel and Palestine supposedly coexist, question mark. But one of the interesting things I realized is that Jerusalem is a city I'm always hearing about because of bus bombings, which makes me realize they must have a decent bus network, right? But did they have a metro was something I decided to dive into, and what I found instead was that, oh yeah, they don't have a metro, but they do have a light rail system. The light rail system looks like pretty much any other light rail system you've probably seen around the world. In the last 20 years, it's just a tram, right? Like, oh yeah, it's a light rail that goes in Jerusalem. But the interesting thing about this light rail is not that it goes in, Israel's side of Jerusalem, but instead that it goes right over here, past the downtown triangle. Then it goes kind of on the border between East and West Jerusalem. And more fascinatingly than that, you can see here how it crosses over the border and then starts to serve some of East Jerusalem. This means there is a light rail system which actually crosses a border or a territory border and goes, deep into East Jerusalem. Again, a very different community, arguably a different country, some people would tell you, which means there's this very interesting thing that happens where we have a light rail system crossing either two territories, two countries, one country that's being occupied by another one, whichever way you want to say it, but there is a border being crossed by a light rail system. Next time you're on a tram, realize that in Jerusalem, you get to cross a border. Also realize that because this is the Middle East we're talking about, and in particular, we're talking about Palestine and Israel, something that happens on a more than frequent basis is things like this. I mean, a lot of those stations get damaged because they're a sign of like Israeli infrastructure, right? And it's an easy thing to target. But yeah, basically it's a scary situation because Middle East, and that's probably the reason why Jerusalem doesn't have a metro, despite being a very big city, because most big cities around the world have in common the fact that they eventually get to the metro stage. I mean, we've gone over the number of cities around the world that have them before, but one of the notable absences of, when it comes to big cities and when it comes to metros at least, is the Caribbean. Most island nations tend not to develop rail as heavily as their, land or continental counterparts. An interesting example of that is the fact that I only knew of one metro that existed in the Caribbean before, and in fact it was the scariest metro I'd ever been on. So I think I've told the story about Santo Domingo before. I went there and right outside, like the very center, like just over, this is the colonial zone. It's like the big tourist zone, if you want to call it that. I was literally at this intersection right here when I was mugged, fun fact, or my phone was stolen from, I don't know what you want to call that, but I was robbed, mugged, or something along those lines by some men on a bike. It was a whole traumatizing situation. But one of the things that I found interesting besides that, I don't have any way to document it, sadly, because I didn't have a phone, but one of the interesting things about Santo Domingo is it is a city in the Caribbean with a metro, with an underground, with not just a single line in fact, but it actually has two lines going on, which I find to be hugely fascinating. Maybe just me? Is it just me? I'm not too sure. But yeah, there is a metro in Santo Domingo, and if you want to learn more about it, allow me to show you right here, because this is their kind of network. This, if you look right here, as like a kind of peek at it, and you can see how like, oh yeah, that's like a fully functioning metro, and it really kind of shows that, one of the things about this metro is it's a good way to get people around the capital city of Santo Domingo, but the other thing about it is the fact that it is a kind of like show to the world, and as a result of that, something that again, I can't find any pictures of, but I swear every train I went on was like this. They have armed guards on the trains. Again, they're pretty, reasonably small trains, right? If you look on the inside, they're like, again, it's a normal metro. It's not big, it's not small. But despite that fact, every single train I went on had armed guards, and supposedly this is like to protect, people on them from like, there's a lot of petty theft, and they decide like an armed guard is an easy way to deal with that. But yeah, that's something that kind of terrifies me, that like, yeah, they have armed guards on the metro, something that made me realize that not all metros are necessarily safe. Also, just as an asterisk here, I just want to mention that, hey, did you know it's not actually the only metro in the Caribbean? There is technically another one, although it's Tren Urbano in San Juan. Technically speaking, it's in the United States, so like, I don't know if you want to count it, but it's in Puerto Rico, and the interesting thing about this to me is just how underused it is. Like, metros, we see them as being these crazy crowded things. This gets a daily ridership of 18,000 people, which, sounds like a lot in the, like, sense of, like, 18,000 people would be a lot to watch a YouTube... Wait, hopefully, by the time you watch this YouTube video, there'll be the same number of people who have watched this video, roughly, who go on this entire metro system every day. To put that in perspective, their annual ridership is just under 5 million, which means that the Tokyo subway systems, which is just two of the parts of the component, like there's the Toei subway and the Tokyo Metro, two different companies. Could talk about that all day because I love public transport, but that's not what you're here for. I just want to mention that the daily ridership of just these two lines, there's a lot of other public transport in Tokyo that uses rail, is 8.7 million, meaning that in a year, the public ridership of this whole system is about half or so of what Tokyo does in a day. And that's just a fun reminder of how, well, the fun reminder, I guess, why so many countries don't invest in metro, because you need people to want to use it and to be willing to use it to make it work, which is why if you dive into it, you'll see how, like, a lot of metros that try to start up in areas where it's probably not too wanted, they do free service to try and get people on it. Jakarta did the same. We could talk about that all day, but instead of talking about that all day, how about instead we dive into more of this 5 list? I think it's 5, because one of the things I decided off that to look into was like, okay, what is objectively the most dangerous metro in the world? Because I've been to Santo Domingo where there were men with guns on the trains. I've heard similar stories in Mexico City of, like, questionable things going down there. So when I decided to look into something I conveniently was looking into anyway, the list of cities by murder rate, this was something I was gonna talk about because when people think about dangerous cities, they don't think about statistics, they think about stories. But I feel like the actual important thing is, 1, how many tourists are killed, because that's what you will be if you go somewhere. And 2, the more interesting thing is, like, okay, where is actually the most dangerous in terms of the locals? And here is the list in terms of homicides per 100,000 a year. As you can see, Tijuana's at the top with 138 homicides per 1,000 people, which is insane. That is a murder rate of like 0.13%, which, to put that in perspective, the entire, this scandal that's going through the world that I don't say the name of, but I show on screen, this big scandal going through the world, right now, it's a huge thing, right? In Mexico, this has killed about 4,400 people. If we do the per capita rating and we assume about just under 2% of people, it's more like 1%, live in Tijuana, but we'll be generous, say 2%, that would mean that about 88 people in Tijuana died of that so far this year, whereas the number of homicides last year in 2018, was 2,600, which means that the number of people that died from this so far this year, 88, would be, if we prorate the year, we say we're a third of the way through it, then we'd say that something like 800 people have died from murder this year, about 20 times as many. I'm not trying to downplay this, I'm trying to upplay this, by the way, because yeah, a lot of people get murdered in Tijuana. Also, interestingly enough, because Tijuana doesn't have a metro, but if you go down the list, what you'll see is that, like, okay, over here at like 15 is St. Louis, a metro I've been on and felt dangerous, but now I can confirm, wow, that's a lot of murders per capita. Cancun doesn't have a metro, but Cape Town, interestingly enough to me at least, does have a metro. Metro Rail, Western Cape region, and I looked at it and I was like, it's like not really a metro, it's kind of Metro Rail, it's like a commuter rail system. But the other thing that kind of terrified me is I was like, Cape Town, I've been like looking into it, like every time I speak to a South African in real life, they're like, it's really safe, just avoid certain areas. But then I looked into it and it's like, oh yeah, so if we look at just 2017 and onwards, it's like trains set alight in Century City. 4 carriages were burned. 2 carriages were set alight. 3 train carriages were burned. 3 carriages were alight. 7 coaches were destroyed by a fire. 5 carriages damaged a retreat station. 2 trains set on fire. I don't know what's happened in the last year and a half or so. I mean, I could dive into it, but I'm sure I'd just get sad. But for some reason, in Cape Town, they've been setting on their trains on fire, and I can't work out completely why. Because I mean, if you're upset with, at least you can understand, like, oh yeah, in Jerusalem, it's seen as like, oh yeah, this is the oppressive people building their public transport infrastructure, those monsters. But at least here it's like, are you just mad at the system and you think the best way is Metro Rail Western Cape? Is that the solution? I don't really see it. But in case you are curious, because in terms of murder rate, Cape Town is only the 11th highest murder rate in the world, with 66 per 100,000 people, although the absolute number of almost 3,000 murders it's kind of scary. The more interesting thing to me is if we go up the list a little bit, we see that the biggest city with a metro in terms of murder rate is Caracas, Venezuela. 2,980 homicides a year. So Caracas, if you don't know, is in Venezuela. And if you don't know Venezuela and what's going on there, apparently it's turned into a political issue because some people are like, you know what? Because Venezuela says it's socialist, and that is vaguely left-leaning, and I am vaguely left-leaning, I'm going to defend Venezuela. I think regardless of where you're on the political spectrum, Venezuela is an example of a country that used corruption and bribery to the people at the expense of a functioning state, in a way that, like, the country has fallen apart in so many ways. The currency is near worthless. The inflation rate, I mean, look into that sometime. Again, Venezuela is basically in this situation of not being a failed state necessarily, but in a situation where things do not work like they do in a normal country, and that's why, even though they have a metro, built during the good times, because again, when the oil money was flowing, Venezuela has the largest oil reserves on Earth that they currently cannot extract from the ground because, you're not diving into that whole thing, but look into it. It's a very... Venezuela is a fascinating tale of a place that had literal liquid gold, and then because everyone wants their slice of the pie, and then like there's no like profit happening, suddenly now they are not selling their liquid gold that the world, I guess not anymore, like oil has gone down in price, but when oil was at its peak, Venezuela was barely making a profit on oil, and now they're not, and as a result, country's going through some things. And if you look at the Caracas metro, something I knew was that it was free, and I knew that it was like kind of weird, because but the reason that it is free, I thought it was just like, oh yeah, so right now currency is hard to control. The actual reason is even sadder, because the government, the main government is, like the one from the, the countrywide, didn't give the company any hard money, some foreign currency, money that's actually worth something, to buy paper with, so they couldn't print tickets, so they just unlocked the turnstiles. It is cheaper for them to just make the thing free than it is to try and, like buy paper, to get any foreign currency at all. And the fact that, their currency is so on that level that it cannot be done is insane. And that was 2018, and it's been free ever since. There have been issues since then, like it went down for a few days, and apparently a lot of stations and trains are out of service because they can't maintain them because no international currency and stuff. But yeah, the fact that there is a metro in the third highest homicide city in the world, kind of wild by itself. But the fact that it's free to use, not because of some grand initiative, but just because, oh yeah, if we charged you money, it would, like, in the end, the system to charge you money costs us more money than we would get from it. And that's before the hyperinflation thing even comes into effect. That's just the fact that the Venezuelan currency, compared to any foreign currency, is seen as so worthless. And that is a tragedy, and that is something I want to kind of underscore this video with. Like, in the case of the Dominican, again, the metro is a sign of improvement, things on the up. In the case of Jerusalem, I mean, obviously, like, you're going to have your own political opinion there, but at least it's a sign of connecting two communities in some way someone can see, doing the thing that transport can do, connecting cities in different ways, even when it's not very used, like, San Juan Metro, sadly, is not a very used system, right? Like, okay, these are things that are sad when they happen, but they're at least like, signs of something going forwards. But the sad thing about, well, even Cape Town's little thing, but the interesting thing about Venezuela and Caracas's one is that the public transport has become more accessible, but not for any good reasons. And I guess I want to just use this video as a point to mention that, like, when people talk about a particular issue and say there are people suffering there, people tend to like shield and point about just their own point of view. Like, if you really dislike war in the Middle East, you might talk about the Palestinians suffering as a way to be like, yeah, Middle East sucks. Or if you want to go more specific, yeah, Israel sucks because Palestinians are suffering. If you want to talk about how socialism's bad, you'd be like, yeah, those people suffering in Venezuela, ha ha ha, my ideology is the best. The truth is, all around the world, in countries outside our borders, assuming you don't live in Venezuela, there are people in some form of suffering state, and like at the very least not on the same lifestyle as us. And one of the most important things to do is to make sure that every country is going in the upwards direction, because right now the number of countries which are still trending downwards is kind of concerning, and the number of people living in those places in rough situations that like don't have easy answers. It's a tragedy, but it's a tragedy that you know what you can fix it with. The open, simple principles of, hey, the reason that a metro is so effective and can connect so many people in all the cities that have them is because it's a magic underground train that takes you from one part of a place to another. It can connect more and more people with jobs, people with friends, people with recreational opportunities, literally improving lives in the way they operate. That's why a metro is a fun thing for me as a tourist, but also a fun thing for me in my personal city. Every time I make one of these videos, because YouTube comments on historical/geopolitical videos tend to lean right, we get a lot of people who are like, no, the car's the best, you idiot. But like the truth is like you should have your own freedom to move if you want to. But the idea of having like a mass transit system that's cheap or close to free for any good reason to get people around a city is something that is something we should broadly agree on, in my opinion. Or maybe I'm crazy, and maybe you think that, no, actually, Digging these tunnels below the ground at great cost to the taxpayer, not a good idea. Do not want. This is a sign of sadness, not of progress. But maybe I don't know. I just wanted to kind of mention that there is a great there are a great deal of big cities around the world which are not connected very well for the, because the governments have not gone and done that. And I don't think it does a good thing for the city. I think making a city less accessible in the case of Tijuana or Acapulco or Victoria City or Juarez or Natal or whatever, these cities, if they connected themselves and made themselves more internationally focused, would probably achieve more. So there's my message for today. I don't know, globalize maybe? Guess I'm a globalist now. Wait. Guess I'm a globalist now, huh? Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you all enjoyed this video, because I'll see you all in one that isn't this one. Oh, also, a lot of people have been asking about the book thing. In case you're curious, like last year I made a book that it was got like 6 months ago, called like This Book is Clickbait, and Amazon cancelled it for pre-order. Like they cancelled all the pre-orders. They really messed up everything. They even removed all my details, like I don't know if I meant to show you this page, but there's, as you can see, they cancelled all the pre-orders, and they won't let me do anything with it. There is nothing I can do about the book. It's just cancelled, and the book got deleted from Amazon as well. There is no page for it. So I revamped the book a little bit. We changed up a few things, made it slightly better, made it, did a few more review cycles, etc. And now a better version of the exact same book, and all the same details about how the world is filled with misleading titles of things that have one title but talk about something else. Arguably the title of this video, we were talking about dangerous metro networks, but where were the stats besides the murder rates? Clickbait in the modern world. But that's just clickbait on the online world. The real world is filled with examples of it too, and this is a book all about that as this video goes live will not be in review anymore, but you'll be able to buy on Kindle at the very least. And if you would like to, I'll leave a link down below because a few people have been asking for that. So we'll do like some actual promotion for it at some point in the future. But if you're curious and you want to pick up the book, you can do that. If you don't care, you don't have to, because you know what? Second channel, don't care. Goodbye.